was not a prophet that did not warn his nation about him, the Dajjal, and I will describe him for you, mentioning an attribute that no prophet before me described him with. Indeed, he is one-eyed, and written between his eyes is kafir, disbeliever. Every believer will read it, regardless of whether he writes or doesn't write, whether he is literate or illiterate. By the command of Allah, Al-Medina are guided by angels. Related that the Messenger of Allah said, Al-Medina and Mecca are surrounded by angels. Upon each of their mountain passes are angels. The Dajjal will not enter it, nor will plague. This narration is very much gharib. The mention of Mecca and plague is not what is memorized, and Allah knows best. Reported that the Messenger of Allah said, indeed, I spoke to you about the Dajjal, and then I feared that you would not comprehend. Indeed, is a short man. There is a large gap separating between his calves, and possessing a compact and powerful physique. One of his eyes is a face. If he makes you confused, then know that your Lord Azza wa Jal, to him belongs might and majesty, is not one-eyed. Related it as well, and each with his own. The Prophet attested to the merits of Banu. I continue to love Banu Tamim for 3 reasons. I heard the Messenger of Allah say, from my nation they are most stern with the Dajjal. When charity from them arrived, he said, these are donations from my people. A female prisoner or slave of theirs was with Aisha, and the Messenger of Allah said, free her, for she is from the progeny of Ismail. Free her. The reported that the Messenger of Allah said, as for he who hears from the Dajjal, then we are not from him. For by Allah, a man will indeed go to him thinking that he is a believer, but then will follow him because of the shubuha, doubts, or spacious arguments to make one have doubts that the Dajjal stirs up in him. Alam related that this narration. In another narration, related that the Prophet said, as for he who hears from the Dajjal, then we are not from him. As for he who hears from the Dajjal, then we are not from him. For indeed a man will go to him thinking that he is a believer, but he will remain with the Dajjal because of the spacious and enticing arguments he has with him, until he ends up following him. The chain of this narration is good. And yet another narration from Umran ibn Hussein, the Messenger of Allah said, he has indeed eaten food and walked in the marketplace, and this is referring to the Dajjal. This narration is related by Sufyan ibn Uyayna. No one asked the Prophet about the Dajjal more than I did. He said, what will harm you from him? Indeed, he will not harm you. I said, O Messenger of Allah, they say that he has food and rivers with him. He said, he is easier for Allah than that. The apparent miracles he has with him are only tests for the people, and not attestations to his truthfulness. Even with those apparent miracles, the true believers will increase in their faith in Allah and in their disbelief in the Dajjal. In another narration, no one asked the Prophet about the Dajjal more than I did. Once he said, and what is your question? They say that he has with him mountains of bread and meat, and a river of water. The Prophet said, he is easier for Allah than that. And in yet another narration he said, no one asked the Prophet about the Dajjal more than I did. Once he said, "And what is your question?" They indeed say that he has with him a mountain of bread and meat and a river of water. The Prophet said, "He is easier for Allah than that." We have already related in the Hadith of Hudayfa and others that his water is fire and that his fire is cold water. It is only the eyes that see those things as being otherwise. A group of scholars, among whom are Ibn Hazm, and hold that the Dajjal is a magician, and there being no reality to the things he makes, be people see what the people see then is not reality but rather imagined things. His doings cannot be realities, for the miraculous acts of the magician must not be confused with the miraculous acts of the Prophet. And others answered that argument, saying that the Dajjal claims godhood and not prophethood, and that is of course impossible for human beings. In that case, it is not impossible that a miracle can occur through him as a medium, that Allah allows for miracles to occur at the hands of the Dajjal so as to test the people. At any rate, many groups from the and as well as some groups from the do not believe that the Dajjal will even come out, and so they reject all Ahadeeth that are related regarding him. In doing so, they have taken themselves outside of the sphere of scholarship, because they reject narrations related through different chains, and in narrations are those narrations that are related by so many narrators at each level of the chain that it is impossible for them to have made a mistake, or for them to have colluded upon fabricating a lie from the Messenger of Allah. And we have related of only a portion of the narrations that speak on this subject, for they are sufficient for our purpose here, and we seek help from Allah. Based on the preceding narrations, it appears that Allah will test his slaves with the Dajjal through the extraordinary actions that he will have with him. The Dajjal will order for the sky to give rain and for the earth to give crops to those who answer his call, and that will happen. Furthermore, their livestock will come back to them in a fattened state. On the other hand, those who do not answer his call and reject him will be afflicted with drought, the death of their livestock, and a decrease in wealth, fruits, and life itself. The treasures of the earth will follow him like groups of bees, and he will kill the aforementioned youth and will then bring him back to life. These matters are realities through which Allah will test his slaves at that time. He will lead many astray through it, and he